Okay, so the next part of ISM was to start doing my interviews. The very first person I interviewed was Kathy Rollins, and she was very cool because she talked to me a lot about the relationship with clients. And that was something I was really interested in because I used to always watch these shows on TV, and the relationship with the client and the designer was constantly changing. People would either be really mad at their designer, or they'd be like really emotional, or they'd just love what they were doing. So I wanted to hear about all the differences and what it was like. And so she told me a lot about the client relationships. She told me that as a designer, you have to be the middle spoke of the wheel. And by that she meant, here's you. You have to talk to the vendors, you have to talk to the contractors, and you have to talk to the client. And you guys all have to be on the same page so that this project can be pulled together and be effective. And then she was also the designer that talked to me about knowing your materials, and that was what led me to researching the safety of materials in the future. And as far as back to the designer-client relationship goes, she talked to me a lot about how your client, it's a really crazy time for them because their house is being torn apart, or their house is being modeled for the first time, and they don't know what it's going to look like. And this is a place where they live, and who wants to live in an ugly place that doesn't work? No one does. And so you as an interior designer have to be really encouraging and be really happy and say everything is going to be okay, because a lot of times people have deadlines and they're stressed out, and it's just really not always a fun time for them when their house is being redesigned. So that was her big point. The next person I interviewed was Nicole Arnold, and she had this in-office material room. That was the very first time I'd seen something like that, and it was really cool to see this material room because it shows you how she takes her clients in there, and her clients get to see what they can use in their homes before they even decide that they want to be her client. And so it had everything from like doorknobs to fabric for your curtains. It was really cool. It was the first time I ever got to see anything like that. She talked to me a lot about unpredictability of business because she started her business during the economic recession, and it was really hard to have business going because interior design is a service and people don't always need it. It's not a necessity to have your house be pretty. Your house is your house. As long as you have one, your life is going to be pretty okay. So she said it was rough when people didn't have the money to have people come in and design their homes. And then lastly, she talked to me about residential versus commercial design because she has done some of both. And I was really always into residential, and she does most of that too, because residential, you can have this really awesome relationship with your client, and it gives you more creative freedom and license to just do stuff, whereas commercial, it's sometimes harder to make things as fun or like funky as you want to because it is commercial and you have it's like a place of business. But she did say the great thing about commercial is that you don't have to worry about your client's emotions. You pick one thing and it's set and you're done. And so that was kind of an interesting perspective. My third interview was with Kevin Twitty, and he worked in IBB Design, which actually is right down the street from here, and he works in this huge showroom, so it was really cool. We sat in these really pretty chairs and we actually did the interview there. And he emphasized paperwork a lot. He said that 80% of his job is doing paperwork, which kind of freaked me out because that sounds like a lot. And I actually didn't hear that from any other interior designer. So it was interesting to see like him working in that showroom might give him more paperwork than other people because he does work with a lot of custom furniture and selling that kind of stuff. He also talked to me about the steps to becoming an interior designer. He said you go to college, you study, you get an internship, and then you go work for a firm, and then you can come and have your own business. He talked to me about how when you first start out having your own business, you kind of have to do it for free because you haven't established that reputation yet. But he said once you have established that reputation, you have to tell people that you're worth paying for, and you don't want to allow yourself to just do the work for free or do the work for a small pay because you have put the work in and you want to be paid for it. And so that was a really good point, and I really liked him telling me about that. And he also made a really huge point, and that it opened my eyes a lot. He said, design for the client, not for yourself. And when I first thought about interior design, I was like, I can put together these beautiful rooms that I love and they're going to be so pretty. And I learned not everyone wants your style. if you want to have this job, you have to adapt to other people's styles, even if it's not your favorite. And so that was good to hear, and that's something that can translate to other areas of life, because no matter what job you have, you're not always going to be doing what you want to do, and you have to adapt to what other people would like to do, especially if they're your client. The fourth interview I did was with Stephanie Nix, and this was a really unique interview because she, when I interviewed her, was coming up on only a year working as a solo interior designer. And so she got to talk to me about the perks of owning her own business just coming into it. And she said that she really likes it because it gives her that creative license. And she also talked about how during this time period it's really easy to be an interior designer, because especially in the Dallas area, because here's the thing, in Dallas people have money and they are willing to pay to make your house beautiful. Like, go out in the middle of nowhere and you're no one, like if you're an interior designer, you're not gonna have a job. You can't do it. But here's a really great place. So she actually did not have a hard time coming into this business at all. And it was really cool to hear that from her perspective, since she's brand new to it. Everyone else I interviewed has been doing it for multiple years. And so that was a really cool new perspective. She talked to me about the importance of going to product showrooms, because she's got to stay up on her game. So she goes to these product showrooms to learn about what's new in interior design, what kind of new appliances can she inform her clients about and bring into their homes. And that was a good point, because you as a designer have to be constantly learning and adapting to the new trends. And you have to be able to be more educated than your client. She said clients these days, they have their magazines and they have the internet and they have TV, and they sometimes try to outsmart you and act like they know what they want in their home, and you have to say, okay, they've done their research, so I have to be on my game. And so that was a new thing I'd heard that no one else had talked about before, so I thought that was really cool. She also talked about understanding the client's needs and tools to finding out what their needs are, and she gave me some questions that you can kind of ask them so you can really get what they want in their home. You can ask them to find pictures in magazines that they like. You can ask them if they've ever worked with a designer before, or what their style is, because sometimes people don't know styles for certain vocabulary, and they don't know what certain types of furniture are called. I mean, I don't even know that still. There's lots of different kinds of things out there, and so it takes time to learn about that. And so you have to be able to say, okay, look in this magazine and point to something you really like. What do you like about it? How do you want that to translate in your home? And that makes it really easy to communicate. And the very last interview I did was with Caroline Ernser, and she actually had a very different business than anyone I'd met before. She actually works with a partnership, which I thought was super cool, because she has her and then the other woman she works with, and they kind of do this checking system where they say, okay, you design this and I'll check it, and we'll work together and make sure it's the best it can possibly be. That way you're not going solo, and you have someone there to always make sure you guys are on track. And so I thought that was really cool to see, because it opened my eyes to, oh hey, maybe I could have a partner, maybe I could work with somebody else, and it doesn't have to be just me. And so that was awesome. The next thing that she has that was really cool, this whole business was really cool, she had the out of the box program. And what that was where they have this online application where you can send in a picture of your home and the dimensions of a certain room and say, just design something for me and tell me what I need to design this, if you're out of their service area. So say, well, they're right here in Texas, say you live in Oklahoma and they can't come that far, that's ridiculous. So you say, okay, just design this space for me, and they would design the space, give you all the things that you need to know about it, send it to you, and then you'd have your own contractor do it. So that's a really good way to maximize your business and your service space, so that way that brings in the money twice as fast, because you're not only giving service people like right next to you, people miles away. So I thought that was really cool. She also talked to me about the importance of networking and actually how easy networking can be as an interior designer, because you need vendors to get things to your clients, but vendors need you to have their job. So it's not always that complicated. People are usually really willing in this business to help you out and to establish a relationship. And then the last thing we talked about was the client's needs and the designer's standards. And this has come up a few times when I was talking with certain people, but she was really open about it, and she talked about how sometimes women in this business are looked down upon because they're women. And she was super open about it. She told me a story about how she had designed something and this man thought it was just terrible. and that he hated it, and he said it was because she was a woman. And so she learned from that she needs to establish a contract where she says what her standards are, and that she can pull out of a relationship with a client that she does not want to have because of the way that they are treating her, or the way that they don't respect her business. And so I thought that was really important, and that opened my eyes to, I am a woman, and going into the professional world, that's going to happen. It happens with everyone, and that's what they have been saying. So I have to be prepared for that, and I have to have my own standards, and I don't want to work with people that are going to undermine me because of my gender. So that was something that was really easy to learn from. So after all these interviews, I was ready to do my original work, where I decided to create a study of the evolution of interior design from 1920 all the way through the 90s. From this, I decided to do a bunch of notes on every decade, including what I'm about to show you, and then I predicted the future after I analyzed everything. It ended up being really cool. So here, as you can see, on the left is a layout of my notes. I did handwritten notes, but they were a mess, so I had to organize them a lot better. And so the first, I talked about the history of each decade and how that may have played a role in the design in people's homes. Then I talked about the color schemes, and you can see I would put them out to the side so you can have a visual of them. And then focus points being what they were trying to accomplish in each decade. In some decades, they were trying to make sure that they could maximize floor space because houses were small, or they were trying to maybe make it more modern or make it more minimalistic based on certain things that were happening. In some situations, it was they wanted to streamline things and make them more simplistic and more industrial based on the times. So after that, I would talk about furnishings, certain types of furniture that were popular, certain types of, if built-ins were popular, stuff like that. And then after that, I talked about the specific styles that were really prominent. Like, for example, this one's on the 1930s, and they had traditional, colonial, and Art Deco styles, and then which parts of those were reflected in the decade. And then after each note section, I had a section of pictures so that you could see exactly what they were like. So here's a drawing of a home in the 1930s, and you can see that some of the colors in there are some of the colors that I talked about in my color schemes. So that was very nice to see that, oh, all my research is true. It makes sense. So it was very reassuring. Okay. And I'm going to pass around my original work so you can all see it. Isn't that great? Okay, anyway. So then after that, I did an entire analysis where I have this crazy page in my portfolio with all these colors so I could figure out how everything lined up over the decades. And I looked for patterns, and I looked for things that changed over time. And one of the craziest patterns I found was that every other decade, starting in the 1920s, there was florals were like extremely popular, and everyone loved them. And then the next decade after that, they'd be gone. Like, you wouldn't find them anywhere. So I thought that was super cool, and I was like, man, does this keep going? Like, if this kept going, this would be a really good prediction for me. Unfortunately, 2000 hit, and everyone realized florals are kind of hideous, so they stopped using them, in bulk at least. Like, little tiny bits are okay. But so I couldn't use that as a prediction for the future because they fell off the face of the earth. But other things I noticed were with colors. Certain colors were really prominent for certain times. Towards the beginning decades, there was a lot of white. For some reason, they were focused a lot on having things being sterile. I mean, they're a lot more prone to disease before we have all these medications that we have today. And then, for some reason, through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there was a huge obsession with avocado and hunter green, which, as we all can agree, is a pretty hideous color. So, and they had it everywhere. They had it on walls, they had it on floors, on ceilings, on furniture. I don't know what that was about, but that was a huge pattern, and it was really strange. And so that showed me that there's chunks of time where these prominent colors last in homes, and they're important. And so then I did a prediction of the future, and up top is a picture that kind of represents this. And basically, we're going to be looking at some more minimalistic homes. Over time, it seems like we are starting to go towards minimalism and stray away from having so many things in our houses, so many colors, and it just gets kind of blah if there's too much going on in there. And so we've kind of been going towards having a minimalistic outlook on our design, and that includes bringing back white and having things be looking more sterile and simple and calm. And then there's also been lots of blacks and grays, and then wood tones have also played in because they bring in nature, which is something we are not having much anymore because we just keep building on our nature. And so all we have are houses and not, nice big forests. So we bring those into our homes, and then windows are huge as well. I also went over what the possibilities are between economic recession and conflict, such as wars and stuff going on. For example, in the 1940s, we were in World War II, and for some reason, in our homes, red, white, and blue were huge. We were very patriotic during the 1940s, and so that really showed up in homes. So it seems like when we have wars that are actually a big deal to our country, those colors kind of show up and we become patriotic. And then when things like recession come, we often have bleaker looking homes because we don't have money to pay for all the pretty things to happen. Although one exception to that was in the 1930s, where we did have the Great Depression, and surprisingly, homes were very bright. And I actually read somewhere that during the 1930s, the people that still did have homes, because a lot of people became homeless during the time, they were very optimistic for the future. That, and they still had money, which other people didn't. And so their homes actually stayed pretty bright. But over time, like in the 90s, there was some economic recession, as well as the 80s. The colors in homes got really bleak. Like in the 90s, there was not much color. It was kind of depressing. But so I did this really cool prediction of the future, and it was awesome, and it took a lot of time, but I learned a lot about history, and I learned a lot more about history than I thought I was going to. I didn't know much going in, and I just thought I was going to be learning about interior design over time, but I was surprised to find out that so much history plays into what we decide to do in our homes, and I got to learn a lot about the culture of America. I even wrote up something for my AP US history class for extra credit all about history of interior design. So it was really cool, and I learned a lot about our country, and I learned a lot about our homes and where interior design is headed. So then I finally got around to my mentorship, and I decided to choose Miss Kathy Rollins because I just hit it off with her from the very first interview, and I could really tell she knew how to answer my questions. She knew like the information that I needed, and it was really good because she just knew what I wanted to hear, and she knew what I needed to know for this class because she has been a mentor in the past, and that has really helped me throughout the year because she's been able to supply me with the information I need because she knows what I need, and so that's been awesome. But the cool thing about her is that before she became an interior designer, she did graduate she graduated college as an engineer. And so that gives her a different perspective of interior design than other interior designers. And it also shows that you can go into a certain career and maybe not like it, and then you can go do interior design because that's always fun. Like, who doesn't want to do that? And so that was kind of a new cool thing I could hear. So it's like if I decide to do one thing, there's always interior design, and that's something anyone can do if you have the proper training and you're really into it. And so we started our mentor visits, and the very first one we did was one of my favorites actually because I learned so much all in one sitting. We went to go visit a model home, and there she wanted to teach me all about the functionality of certain spaces and where they're using the space properly and where they're wasting space. And so we walked through this really nice, what was it, like a $680,000 home that was up for sale, and it was so nice, and it was huge, and it was beautiful. Like, the design of it was beautiful. But as we found walking through the home, although it was gorgeous, it did not work very well because some things that are pretty don't work. And what is equally important to beauty is it being able to function. That is really what I learned. For example, we were in the kitchen. The kitchen had this huge island, and it was this beautiful countertop, and it was just filled up the whole kitchen. It was gorgeous. We were like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. But then we went to walk around it, and we were like sweating by the end of it because it was a marathon. Like, we were looking, we were thinking, who could work in this kitchen? The island takes up all this space. You have to walk all the way around it to get to the other side of the kitchen. And so we were like, there's no way this is functional at all. Plus, the oven was practically in the living room because the kitchen was so wide because of the island. And so it was not functional whatsoever. And so that was a good example of how just because something is gorgeous, it doesn't mean it works ever. And so that was a good learning point. And I learned a lot of things like that from this home. And I also learned things that weren't exactly about functionality, but I learned about certain applications for certain materials. We went in the bathroom, and it was this really pretty huge bathroom, and they used these huge stone tiles on the floor, and the way they ran made it look like the room was really big. So we talked a lot about how certain types of materials can make a room look larger, and everyone wants the room to look larger. No one wants a room to look smaller unless they like being like in enclosed spaces. So everyone wants the room to look larger, so you have to use the materials you have and orient them a certain way to make it look like that. There was another bathroom in the house that had vertical tiles running up the wall, and it made the room look really tall, and it was a small little bathroom, but it made it feel bigger. And so that was another cool application of materials that I learned about. After the model home visit, we went to the fabric showroom called Berkeley, and it's exactly what it sounds like. There's just fabric everywhere, hanging from the walls, and it's mostly in color order, and then they have trim if you want to put trim on pillows or furniture, and then they have examples of window coverings that are very huge and immaculate, and it's really cool. And so that gave me a perspective of where she gets her materials from, and she also talked me through what she does there, every step from how she draws up her plans for something, she gives it to them, and they tell her how much yardage she needs and what it's going to cost, and that way she can budget her projects. And then we went to the flooring showroom called ProSource. It's all the way out in Allen. We went there multiple times, and I thought this flooring showroom was super cool because for whatever reason, I think tile is awesome, and I just think tile is just so pretty because you can have so many different color tiles, and they can go on the walls, and they can go on the floor. They can go anywhere. It's so cool. And so, well, at least I think it is. I get excited about it. And so we went to the flooring showroom, and it was this huge, just enormous space, and it had everything from stone, tile, countertops, wood floors, carpet, and they're even adding on to it to have more materials there, which I can't even imagine because I feel like it has everything. But we went through on this first time we went there and just looked at everything, and we talked about where these things could be used, why they're important, and just general information about them. And so one of the coolest things I found, which I don't know if everyone knows about this, or maybe I just didn't know and I'm lame or something, but they have this tile that looks like wood. And so I was like, whoa, that's awesome. Like, it looks just like wood. So they put it on the floor, and it looks like a wood floor, but it's tile. And the awesome application for this is if you have a room, like a bathroom or a mud room that's going to get wet all the time, but you really want to have wood floors, you can put wood tile in there, because wood floors would be ruined by water, but tile wouldn't be. So you can look like you have wood floors, but have tile. I thought that was awesome. It was amazing to me. I don't know if anyone else knew about that, but I didn't. But so we just went through and learned all about that kind of stuff, and it gave me some cool ideas about what I wanted to put in my final product later on. And we actually went there to get my materials for that. And so then all of our mentor visits between then and now have been final product planning. And actually next week we're going to go to her art vendor and look through all of the art, and that's really cool because I love art. Anyway, so final product planning, and so that takes me to my final product. I decided to design a bedroom and bathroom that are joint together, and at first I thought I wanted to do a kitchen like I talked about before because I thought kitchens were super cool. But I decided I did not want to do a kitchen because a lot of things go into a kitchen and they get really expensive, and they also don't give you opportunity to use certain materials that you would use in a bedroom, like for example pillows and furniture and stuff like that. Kitchens don't have those, so it doesn't give me the opportunity to look at them. So I ended up picking the bedroom and the bathroom so that I could have things like tile in the bathroom and then carpet in the bedroom, and so then I could go to both the material sources and be able to use both of them and learn the most I possibly could. So first thing I had to do for this product was create a client profile, and since this isn't a real project and it's mine, I decided I would get to do whatever I wanted. So I picked that I'm designing for a couple who lives in a large apartment in a skyscraper overlooking the ocean. Because it has to do with some of the things I put in the room that I'll talk about later. And this couple, they don't have any kids, which means I don't have to worry about certain materials being used that would have to be a certain durability, and they don't have any pets, which makes that even easier too. So this couple, they work a lot, and they wanted to have a awesome place to come home to and relax in their bedroom and their bathroom. So let me go through all the things I did. So here's the chronology. I did the client profile, and then I created a design concept statement. The purpose of this was to describe what the bedroom and the bathroom's purpose were and what the feeling needs to be when you go in there. So this is before you even start the design, and my mentor told me that it's really important because you want to be able to say, this is what the bedroom's like, and they're gonna be like, I want that. So when I talked about my bedroom, I was like, it's gonna be this place where they wanna come home and relax. It's gonna have a beautiful wood wall behind the bed that's gonna bring in nature, and it's gonna have a very nice, soothing environment. Obviously that wasn't that great, but my actual one that I wrote out was really nice, and when you read it, it makes you think, I want to be there. It sounds like a spa, even though it's not, but it's really nice, and so it makes you want to be there. It makes your client convinced that, oh, my home is going to be awesome when this project is over. And it also establishes a little more trust because then you realize the designer knows what they're doing. So after that, I put together the floor plan for the bedroom and the bathroom on SketchUp. And then I also designed a custom built-in because I wanted to have a little side project that would help me maximize space for the clients. So this built-in provides them with more shelving and more drawers than just the dresser and the end tables of their bed that they had before. So that was a cool addition to the project, and I designed it myself. And then we went over materials. I went to the I went to the showroom for the flooring, and I went to the showroom for the fabrics so that we could get all the materials and put them together. And then I went through and picked out furniture and accessories and took pictures of those and budgeted all of those, and that brings me to my budget, where I put everything in this huge table and typed everything in and put all the money in. The budget is huge, probably very unrealistic unless these people are really rich and they wanted a really great space, but I'm not a professional, so that's okay. The budget seems to be anywhere right now between about $50,000 and $60,000 for these 2 rooms, so very high end. Anyway, though, and then I did a construction plan, and it takes actually quite a while to do these things because you have to find your materials before you can order them, and finding them alone takes about a month, and then ordering them takes another month because custom things have to come in, and not until then can you really start putting the room together. So it takes a lot of patience from not only the interior designer but the clients, and that also plays into how the interior designer has to be like, it's okay, everything's going to be fine, it's all going to be pulled together eventually. And so then lastly, so that I could create a visual for myself and my audience, I built a model, which is right here. So you can see what the room would actually look like in real life. So here are the materials I chose for the bathroom. On the bottom is a hexagon tile for the floor, and they're actually only about an inch in diameter each, and they would be filled with a light grout on the floor of the bathroom. That way it brings some texture to the bathroom floor, but it's also really subtle and keeps everything minimalistic, which was something I was going for because I kind of wanted to design something that kind of reflected what I found in my original work to be the future. And then right above it is a green tile, and I think I'm gonna have like the actual ones on the day, so then I can pass them around. So it'll be good. Anyway, and so the green tile is going to be behind the glass shower, and it's going to be the main source of color in this room to make sure that everything isn't too sterile looking, because you don't want your bathroom to look like a hospital. That's the last thing from relaxing. So the green is really pretty, and I actually found something like that on House, which is an interior designer website, and so that was kind of my inspiration. Right above that is hard to see, but I'll have the real one on the day of the final presentation, is the countertop, and it's this really pretty, I don't know if it's a marble, I forgot what it was, but it has this like little specks of gray in it, so that'll be the countertop where the sinks are. And then right above that is for the cornice boards, and for those of you who don't know what a cornice board is, because I sure didn't, it's the thing that goes right above the window. It looks like a little box, and it's like a window covering, but it doesn't go it doesn't go like all the way down the window. It just goes right across the top of the window. There's no cornice board up there. No, that's not what that is.
Like the little thing that sticks out.
Yes, exactly. And so I'll have a picture of that. But yeah, and so that's the pattern, and we found that at Berkeley, the